Hello there, people of the internet. How's everyone doing today? I'm doing alright. Thanks for asking. So, me and my buddy were talking the other day and we were discussing 22 long rifle. My buddy's a gun guy, I'm a gun guy, but we have some different views on some certain things. For example, he thinks 22 long rifle is like the ultimate survival cartridge and you can do basically anything with it. 22 long rifle does have a lot of perks, but it also has a lot of limitations. So I actually decided to come out here. Originally I wasn't going to make a video, but I decided to come out here and do some plinking with one of my 22 long rifles. This right here is my GSG Sturmgewehr 44. Very neat little gun. It's not really what I would call a survival rifle, but it's fun for plinking, fun for, shooting, fun at the range. Great cheap option if you do not want to spend the thousands of dollars it would take to get yourself an actual Sturmgewehr. So there we go, excellent option. However, the firearm used is not our discussion. I figured this would be an excellent opportunity to actually discuss the pros and cons of 22 long rifle. Now, a lot of people out there, they already know all this. A lot of people in the gun community know exactly what I'm going to talk about in this video, but there's a lot of new people in the gun community right now. So maybe one of them will come across this video and maybe they'll get some useful information. So that's one of my main reasons for making this video. We got a lot of newcomers. Welcome to the gun community, guys. You're going to see that politicians are not your friend. They want to take away all of your rights and it's going to do nothing. Absolutely nothing to stop the criminals. Okay, well, I got my magazine, I got my rifle, I got a range. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, I'm sorry to say I only have one magazine for this thing. The magazines for these are wickedly expensive, like stupidly expensive, so I've only got one magazine for this thing. Before we get into our discussion about 22 long rifle, I'm going to go ahead and make some blasting at the range. I don't really have any specific setup target, so I'm just going to kind of be peppering the car on this one. But hey, that's as cool as anything else in my book. Malfunction. This right here, I knew this was going to happen. I'm running older 22 long rifle. I knew I was going to have a malfunction of some kind. This is an excellent example of our first topic. We're going to go ahead and cover some of the cons of the 22 long rifle. By far, one of the bigger ones, reliability. The 25 ACP cartridge was actually made because the 22 long rifle, with its rimfire capabilities, was not as reliable as people wanted it to be for a self-defense cartridge. As a result, they went ahead and made the centerfire 25 ACP. Goes to show, if you got to make yourself a new cartridge because the old one is that unreliable, probably pretty unreliable. And we are out of ammunition. I really don't like loading up this mag. It's annoying, takes some time, but firing this gun is very nice. And that's our next topic of discussion. Now then, this right here is like both a pro and a con topic, so just bear with me on this one. So both a pro and con for 22 long rifle is that 22 long rifle does not have a lot of power behind it. Now, I'm not saying that a 22 long rifle is, weak to the point to where it won't kill somebody. Plenty of people have died from 22 long rifle. It definitely has enough force to handle what it's got to handle with proper shot placement. However, a 9mm, 45 ACP, 357, those will do exponentially more damage than a 22 long rifle will. That is the con. However, the pro, because the 22 long rifle is such an anemic cartridge, it has very little recoil. As a result, You can get a lot of really quick follow-up shots with this thing, and it is an excellent training cartridge. Anyone who might be inexperienced with firearms, if they're firing a 22 long rifle, specifically perhaps a nice and heavy 22 long rifle like the Stromgewehr, this thing is quite weighty, and the recoil on it is basically non-existent. They will learn not to flinch whenever the firearm goes off, which is a critical aspect in firearms operation, especially if you're wanting to, you know, have any sort of accuracy whatsoever. So, pros and cons right there. Not a lot of power, but also not a lot of recoil, meaning lots of follow-up shots. Another excellent pro that a 22 long rifle has, that it basically puts it above most other cartridges. I won't say all, but most other cartridges. Definitely all others that are more powerful than it. It is very lightweight, very small, very compact. You can carry, you know, a brick of this stuff in a backpack, you know, 500, 1,000 rounds of this stuff in a backpack, and it would be the same as carrying about 120 rounds of, you know, AR-15 ammunition, the 223s, or hell, 60 rounds or so of 7.62 x 39 for the AK-47. You can carry a lot more 22 long rifle than you ever could the intermediate cartridge rounds. Whenever you're talking about, you know, in comparison to weight ratios. Now granted, if you're like a big beefy guy, you could probably carry, you know, 10, 30 round mags of AR-15 223 ammunition, but imagine how much 22 long rifle you could carry for that same amount of weight, despite the fact that you would have less power. Now, that less power does mean you have less range as well. If you're somebody like me, not great eyesight, you know, I can't see past 100 yards, let alone make shots out to that distance. I've made videos where I've tried. Kind of successful whenever my target is stationary and like highlighted, like I painted the silhouette target I fire at gold, and I kind of made some shots, missed a few, but that was good enough. Unless I have some sort of magnifying optic, I won't be going out to the extended ranges that 223, 7.62 x 39, 308, some of these things, they can reach out to those distances, but if I can't, it doesn't matter what those rounds can reach. So 22 long rifle would be a good substitute, maybe not in this firearm, but a good substitute for a survivalist cartridge. Ah yes, you guys will have to forgive Kevin. He's standing right over there. Anyone who doesn't know who Kevin is, he's my peacock. I got 5 of them, and they like to scream, so they're just like me. Alright, well, the wind is beginning to pick up, so right now, while I can't talk, we're gonna fire some more 22 long rifle down at the range. Failure to fire. Failure to extract. One thing I will point out, just in case it does happen with this rifle, a lot of your 22 long rifles, whether or not they're rifles or handguns or whatever it is you're running them through, the extractor claw on a lot of them, if you have a round that won't come off or won't go off or anything like that, it won't fire, the extractor claw on a lot of these 22 long rifle chambered firearms, they're not quite enough to pull out a stuck case. So you might want to consider, if you're running with this thing in the field and using it as an actual survival gun, have like a knife or a nail or something that you could use to physically pull a case that won't fire, or maybe it did fire and just got stuck. The extractor claws on a lot of these, not all of them, but the extractor claw on a lot of these guns, especially the cheaper ones, like the lower grade ones or maybe the older ones, they're not quite enough to pull out a spent casing. In a straight blowback design, the firearm operates solely off of the blowback from the detonating cartridge. This also serves as the extraction as well. For a good portion of firearms, the extractor claw is more of a helper than it is an actual extractor. Sometimes the blowback is not enough to blow that casing out, and sometimes the extractor is not enough to grab onto that casing. So as a result, that's whenever you get your 22 long rifles that have a casing stuck in the barrel. And I've seen it, plenty of other people have seen it, I'm sure. You just take yourself a little knife and you pull that casing out of the barrel and you're good to go. However, if you don't have yourself a tool to do that, or a stick or something, long fingernails, you might be in trouble. You're going to end up with a firearm that won't function because you can't manage to clear it. Now, if you're running something like one of those 22 long rifles, like a Marlin that has the tube magazine, you're going to find that using that extractor on that bolt to, push forward onto the case of the 22 long rifle, that's going to be really difficult because you're going to have to reach in there and hold that next round down under the barrel to make it to where you can push that bolt forward. If you have no idea what I'm talking about and don't know anything about, 22 long rifle tube magazines, then don't worry about it. Just keep in mind that you're going to need some sort of tool to pull that spent casing out, especially if you can't manage to close the bolt, because on a tube magazine it's very difficult to do that if you have more ammunition inside the tube magazine. Alright, let me go ahead and load up some more ammunition inside this magazine and we'll continue our discussion. I'll go ahead and continue the discussion while we have some still wind, even though I am still loading this magazine. One thing that I do want to say, 22 long rifle, if you're dealing with an inexperienced shooter, it is a less dangerous round. Note how I did not say it is a non-dangerous round. I said it is a less dangerous round. If you're dealing with someone who does not necessarily properly know, gun safety and whatnot, if they manage to shoot one off and it hits you in, a non-vital spot, I'm not going to say they had, poor shot placement because they weren't trying to, actually shoot you, complete accident. But if you're hit by one of these in a non-vital spot, your chances of survival are far more likely as to if you were teaching them on like a 44 Magnum. Doesn't matter if you get hitting a non-vital spot with a 44 Magnum, because pretty much everywhere is going to be a vital spot. Unless they manage to like get you in the foot or hand, you'll probably survive that. But if you get hit by one of these in the leg, unless they hit your artery or something, odds are you're going to be okay. But if you get hit by a 44 in the leg and you don't have a tourniquet, it's going to do a lot more damage and you're going to have a lot more likelihood of bleeding out if you don't seek immediate medical attention. Now, if you are thinking that whoever you're teaching is that unsafe with firearms to the point to where you think you might get shot, I highly recommend training them on like a BB gun or a paintball gun, airsoft gun, something like that, something less lethal. Hell, a toy gun if you feel up to it. I will address the rumor that people, typically your older community, say that these are the most deadly round because it will impact your chest cavity and like bounce around and whatnot. If you have any idea what bullet fragmentation is, you'll know that's not the case. Now, not necessarily. Bullets do special things from time to time. There might be an instance where something has bounced around at some point, but it's just a piece of lead. Once it impacts bone, it's going to fragment, especially if it's one of those hollow point rounds. And the 22 long rifle does not exactly have a lot of terminal velocity. So after it impacts, it's not just going to ignore friction altogether and continue to move. As a matter of fact, that might make an interesting video. I could foresee a 22 long rifle maybe impacting the sternum, going through the first layer of bone, maybe hitting the rear ribs, depending on how muscular the guy is, and perhaps bouncing back. But it's not going to like do a star shape inside the chest cavity like a lot of people think. It's not going to bounce off 10, 12, 15 times and just shred the guy's insides. Now, if you want to do something like that, get yourself a hollow point or like one of those rip cartridge, 9mm or even better, 45. That'll do exactly the type of shredding you're wanting to happen. Okay, well, I'm going to load up more ammunition and we're going to fire. There's going to be another con for 22 long rifle. It's a very, very dirty cartridge. If you don't clean your gun at least a little bit regularly, like say after every 1,000 rounds or so, you're going to start seeing some more and more significant reliability issues. Another topic of discussion, I guess this would be a pro for 22 long rifle. If you cut, like, let's say it's apocalypse situation, end of the world, you're, I don't know, in some abandoned city, surrounded by zombies. If you manage to come across a box of 9mm or a box of 45, odds are it's going to be like 25 rounds, maybe 50 rounds. If you get lucky, you'll get like one of those boxes of 100 or 200 rounds. Odds are if you come across a brick of 22 long rifle, even if it's just partially full, you're going to get a couple hundred rounds of 22 long rifle from that. So that is definitely a big perk if you ever find yourself surrounded by zombies. Another big perk, this right here isn't really apocalypse based or survivalist based. It is more like tactically based. The 22 long rifle is very easy to suppress because it's already kind of a quiet round. So if you go with some subsonic 22 long rifle ammunition, throw a can on whatever it is that you're running, man, you're going to have one quiet gun. A few things I want to point out, because I'm sure someone's going to yell at me in the comments below who's like a big 22 long rifle fan. I'm not saying that 22 long rifle is anemic to the point to where it won't kill somebody. I'm not saying that if you get shot and it bounces off your rib cage, you know, I'm not saying that's impossible. I'm saying it's just not going to bounce around like people, you know, say it does. It's not going to just pinball along your organs. I'm not saying it's an anemic round. I'm also not saying that it's not reliable. I'm just saying it's less reliable than some of the modern centerfire cartridge ammunition that we have nowadays. But no matter the case, it is still a lot lighter and a lot more portable than your intermediate cartridges for any other rifle or even any other handgun. Unless, of course, you're talking about the 25 ACP. 25 ACP is a little bit more reliable, but generally it will have slightly worse ballistic capabilities than a 22 long rifle. And it's a little more expensive, like a little more expensive. Like 9mm, which is far more powerful, is actually less than 25 ACP. However, that does bring me to my next point. If you are a gun guy like I am, and you have yourself a range like I do, give me a second. If you're a gun guy like I am and have a range like I do, and you are on, and your income is limited, definitely limited. I'm not like on a fixed income or anything. I do work full time, but I'm not exactly made of money. I get paid by the hour, and I got to make my money count for something. So 22 long rifle is definitely absolutely a cheaper alternative than like coming out here and blasting off 223s. I burned through what, 3 or 4 mags of 20 rounds apiece of 22 long rifle. I basically didn't spend anything doing that. It's 20, 40, 60, 80. Let's say I burned 100 rounds of 22 long rifle, and this is just like that bulk stuff. You pick those up for about 15 bucks or so, the 550 bulk boxes. So I didn't burn through that much money. Now, if I were to burn through 100 rounds of 223, still wouldn't be that much, but be a hell of a lot more than this 100 rounds of 22 long rifle. Now, another thing I'm going to point out real quick, this is not with every firearm, but in general, 22 long rifle, the firing pins are kind of fragile. Just rimfire ammunition, their firing pins are typically kind of fragile. You don't really want to dry fire them. If you're firing it with ammunition, normally you're alright, but if you dry fire it too many times, you risk bending or breaking your firing pin. Now, that's not necessarily a big deal in guns that lock open after the last shot has been fired, but on a firearm that doesn't lock open on the last shot, and you have to discover that by dry firing your firearm, over time you might do some damage or wear out that firing pin more quickly than you would with a center fire round. Let me ask you guys something. I was talking with this old man the other day, and I guess he like fought in Korea, and he thought that the 22 long rifle was the end-all be-all because if you get hit by it, it's just gonna pinball inside your rib cage and like turn your insides into a hamburger. But this same guy also thought that 30 caliber carbine, which has the same ballistic efficiency as a 357 Magnum, he thought that like a heavy jacket would be enough to stop that thing, and it doesn't matter if you shoot anyone at point blank range, they're going to be absolutely fine from it. I see a little bit of hypocrisy here. That 30 caliber carbine is significantly more powerful than a 22 long rifle. So, yeah, I'm just like looking at that. A lot of people, they don't really look at logic. They just like have this certain specific mindset, and they refuse, no matter what you tell them or show them, they refuse to change it. If you guys have any stories like that, by all means, let me know down below. I would absolutely love to hear them. Now, I feel like I am missing some points I wanted to make, or maybe I like repeated some points. Whenever I come out here, most of what I do is non-scripted. If I'm talking about something really important, I'll have like some notes written down or something. So maybe later on I'll think of something that I wanted to add to this video, but like forgot about it. So like I said, it's non-scripted. In all fairness, I probably should have written down the points that I was trying to make just so I could make sure I made all of them. But if I think of something later on, or somebody brings something up and I think it's good enough, I'll go ahead and stick it down in the description. That being said, thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, share. YouTube's being very anti-gun right now, so every like, every subscribe, every share definitely helps this channel. If you like what I do and you want to support the channel even more, I do have a second channel linked down below in the description. Second channel is basically a camouflage in case anything happens to this channel that I'm currently on. I don't really do much on the second channel. I just like get drunk, play video games, and put it on YouTube. It's a lot of fun to do. I do it anyway. I figure I may as well make myself like a little camouflage channel. In case something does happen to this channel, I still have like a fallback to go on. So if you want to stay in the loop with this channel, if it decides to disappear just because YouTube says so, I feel like they really should not be able to do that. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. I really feel like YouTube should not be able to do that. They can't just like take away your livelihood and your job and whatnot with a snap of their fingers. I get it's a private corporation, but a lot of this has to do with First Amendment rights and being able to at least voice our opinion. Now, that being said, I am going to start putting the disclaimer: if you go to a gun range, please stay safe. And also, don't try anything you see me do at home. There's a good disclaimer. Alright, go ahead and check out the Patreon page as well. I started doing Q&As just because I get a lot of interesting and repeat questions. A lot of it I'm not going to answer just because I don't want to. The internet comes up with some really interesting stuff to ask. So, yeah, I'm not going to step into that clusterfuck. But I also have some really interesting stuff on the Patreon page, so go check that out. You don't have to be a Patreon to check it out or to leave me a question down below. If I feel it's worthy, I'll stick it up on my Q&A. Alright, that being said, I'm kind of hungry. I'm going to go grab me a bite to eat. You guys go off. Have a fantastic day. Once again, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share. Don't let YouTube drown me out. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. chance, Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.